Every single day that we walk into the room, we have choices to make, and the choices are really, really simple. Are we going to be distracted? Are we going to pay attention to things other than what our learning is? And if we do that, you'll get very good at those things other than learning. But if you want to succeed in class, if passing is important to you, if forging a really good future is important to you, then you cannot pay attention to other things and expect to do well here. Think about if you're playing a video game. If you're playing a video game and you have a bunch of little kids running and screaming and running all over the room and a puppy dog whining in the kitchen and all the relatives coming over, and every time you try to sit down and score your best on the game, you have to get up out of your seat, or somebody's bumping into you, or somebody's trying to talk to you. In fact, when your mom and dad tries to talk to you when you play video games, don't you get snotty and like, get away from me?
No.
Well, now is the time to focus, just like you need to focus at that time. So, Joel is still very busy. He's building a deck for his neighbor Bill. The length of the deck is 3 less than twice the width. So as soon as you realize he's building a deck is shaped in a rectangle. Here's my rectangle. In algebra, the most important thing, Joe, that you can possibly understand, knees on the desk, face forward. As soon as you turn, no, it's not going to move the desk, it's going to move your knees. When you are dealing with algebra, the difference between algebra and an arithmetic, arithmetics use numbers, and arithmetic uses numbers. Algebra uses variables as well as numbers. So when you don't know what something is in algebra, we call it a letter or a variable. In this case, the length is expressed in terms of the width. The length of the deck is blah, blah, the width. So I have to start with the width. If I said to you, Chris has $10 more than I do, I have to start with how much I have to figure out what Chris has. So I don't know what the width is. It's algebra. I give it a variable name. I call it W. Then there's the other side going across the top, which says it's 3 less than twice the width. As soon as you see less than, not only do you think subtract, what else do you think? Come on, somebody, Ava, face forward. Somebody has to notice. What? No, less than is subtraction. What else are you thinking? Every time you see less than and more than, what do you think? If you don't know how to answer this question, you have not been paying enough attention. Because I can tell you the entire next class, all 21 or 22 kids in it, will immediately say the chant and get it right.
Oh, first shall be last, and then last.
Last shall be first, first shall be last. Very good. So, I add them all up. Here's my one side. This is the left. This is the top. This is the right. This is the bottom. And I put a little hoop under each one, not because you need it. You certainly don't. But I just want you to see that they're the sides. Add up all my X's, or W's, I'm sorry. There's 6 W's. -3 and -3 makes -6. And I solve it out. I get the W is 9. I didn't finish the problem, though. It said find the area. If this is 9, 2 times 9 is 18 minus 3 is 15. And 9 times 15 is 135. So that's what it should work out to be. All right, I didn't bother doing the exponent ones. I'll do those one day coming up pretty soon. That's practice we should be good at. Find the slope. So I write my slope formula. Y from second point minus the y from the first point. Ava, stop turning around. Over x from the second minus x from the first. I label them points 1 and 2. I plug in the numbers, -1/2. I do the same thing for number 8. Label them points 1 and 2, plug in the numbers, I get 0. Any questions on 7 or 8? Okay, number 9. What you need to remember to do number 9 is you need to remember that the lines are parallel. Parallel lines always have equal slopes. So, one of the slopes is 1/3, the other one is n over 12. If they're equal, I can cross multiply. That's the symbols I put here. 3 times n is 3n, 1 times 12 is 12, divide by 3, n is 4. And then it says, convert each to y equals mx plus b format. When it says that, that means get y by itself. The first thing we always attack is the plus or minus the x part, or a number if a number was there. And after attacking the plus or the minus, I worry about if there's any number next to the y. So in the first one, I had to add x to both sides. I get y equals x plus 4. The slope is 1, the y is 4, the y-intercept's 4. Next one, I had to do two things. I had to first subtract the 5x, then I needed to divide by 2. So the slope is negative 5 halves, the y-intercept is negative 4. And then on letter C, all I needed to do was divide by 3. So the slope is negative 2/3, the y-intercept is 2. If you can do that, you are in great shape for the test we have coming up on Wednesday. I mean great shape. Any questions?
No.
Okay, let's go to the next page, which asked you to actually do some graphing. Here's the first line, just like before, I divide by 2. I get y equals 3 halves x minus 4, so the slope is 3 halves, the y-intercept's minus 4. Here I go, down here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 3 over 2, up 3 over 2, up 3 over 2, up 3 over 2. Connect the dot, I'm done. Questions? Okay. Next one. The bad thing is that it says y plus x, and it should say just y equals. So I subtract x from both sides. Slope's negative 1, y-intercept is 5. I go up to 5 and begin. Then I move. Down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. There's each of those lines done, and they are labeled. Here's the one label here, and the other label is down there. Okay? Again, number 12 is getting at what we mentioned before. Parallel lines have equal slopes. The one that's not equal is choice C. Okay, the one that's not equal is choice C. The next one, what we're looking at on the next one is, and choice C, by the way, on number 12 is because they're not parallel. The other two have the same slope. Number 13, B and C have the same y-intercept. They're both 3. Remember, in letter C, you needed to divide by 3. A is not the same y-intercept. Okay, write the equation of a line. Very simple. Just plug in the m and the b. Y equals 2/3 x minus 1. Y equals negative 2/5 x plus 8. And y equals negative x. You could put plus 0, but it's not necessary. Any question on those homework questions? Okay. If you can get just about every one of those questions right, you're doing extremely, extremely well. Okay. Let's get going on the questions that we have in today's lesson. Okay. I think we're also talking today about getting things into y equals mx plus b format. Second day of that. When we're done with doing this for today, we're getting pretty close to everything you need to know how to do on your test next Wednesday. So focus, learn these steps, these manipulations, and you should be in really good shape.
Are you sick?
What was that?
Are you sick?
Am I sick?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Why?
You were not in the line.
Yeah, you know, my dad used to say his get up and go got up and went.
What?
His get up and go, his energy, got up and went. And sometimes I feel like my get up and go got up and went. Come on, forward, turn, forward, let's go, rock, roll, move. You know, I'll tell you what I know. This is going to be very hard for you guys to understand in the beginning, but I think you'll understand, Joe. Turn, forward. I think you'll understand it over the course of time. Do you know what the most expensive thing you'll probably ever buy in your life is?
A house.
House. A house, good. A house is so expensive.
Knowledge.
It is never me versus you. It is always you versus yourself, and if you choose not to pay attention, you can do that. You will suffer. It's just a question of time. And then when you get slammed, because your decision to not pay attention now and not do your work now comes back to haunt you, do not blame somebody else. Blame you, because you are the problem. You need to win that battle with yourself. We all have battles we go over. I battle my weight. I battle it like crazy. If I don't eat a certain way, if I don't exercise a certain way, I get very heavy, very fast. It is a curse in my life. If you like to be social in your classes and you like to talk in your classes, that's your battle. But if I don't take care of my weight, I get really, really big and I die young and I'll suffer. And when I'm having a heart attack, I can remember that I had my opportunities to take care of myself. Or you can do what I do now, which is make sure that I get my exercise every day And I would love, absolutely love, to dunk chocolate chip cookies in milk for a snack. I would love carrot cake for a snack, but I don't. I eat trail mix, I eat protein bars, I eat fruit. Because I know that if I do that, I'll be healthier for it. Okay, now, the most expensive thing that most of us will ever buy in our lives are our homes. And when you buy a home, it's so expensive that you have to take a loan for it. But you don't take like a normal loan. If you take a car loan is for 5 or 6 years. If you take a small personal loan, it's for anywhere from 2 to 5 years. When you take a house loan or a mortgage loan, it's anywhere from usually 15 to 30 years. Yep, and you pay back a ton of money. If you borrow 200,000, you pay back roughly 500,000. It's interest on the loan. It's very expensive with a mortgage. Now, because of all of this interest, if you take a 30-year loan and you make the minimum payments every month, you will borrow 200,000, you will pay back 500,000. It's about a 2.5% factor, 2.5 times factor that you pay back. Now, what I do, when I bought my first house, every month I'd pay extra. My mortgage back then was like $920 a month. I paid $1,000 a month. We had that house for years, then I moved up to another house. I sold that house. When I sold that house, I owed about $70,000 on the house, and I sold it for $170,000. So I made a $100,000 profit. I took the $100,000 profit and I put it as a down payment on the house that I live in now. Catty corner to grandma. I paid the $100,000 as a down payment. I had to borrow about $150,000 on that house to pay for it. Or actually, I put $80,000 down, so I borrowed more like $170,000 on the house. Had that mortgage for a while, but I noticed I wasn't getting ahead quick enough. And I ran the numbers and I said, I want to move in 2018. How much money will I be able to make? How much profit will I make when I sell my house then? So when I retire, I can buy a house with no mortgage, where I can pay cash for the house, which is very important to me. And I could pay $1,600 a month, but when I sold the house, I would only have about $70,000 profit, which means when I retire and move, I couldn't buy a house, I'd have to take another mortgage and start all over again. And in the beginning, you pay a lot more interest than you do at the end. So then I turned around and I said, okay, I changed my mortgage. I went to a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30-year mortgage. And every single month, I pay extra. I pay $50 a month extra, $75, sometimes $100 a month extra. It's not a lot, but I do have a low interest rate. And right now, when I retire in June of 2018, we expect to have the house sold at the absolute latest by December of 2018, at the latest. And then we will move and leave Long Island. And the cost, yay is very yay. And
The traffic.
yes, the congestion, the pressure, the stress, the cost of living, blah, blah, blah.
Where are you going?
Upstate, probably. So then I will make on the sale of my house about $200,000. So then I can take that $200,000 and I can put it into buying a house for cash upstate, and I have no mortgage payment when I retire.
Well,
Right now, I pay about $2,400 a month for my mortgage. When I retire, I won't have a mortgage payment. I'll have a few dollars I have to pay every month to taxes, probably about $400 a month, a little bit for insurance, $400 total a month. The rest of that money, I won't have to pay back. It's like saving $2,000 a month for the rest of my life.
That's my grandpa's favorite.
So by paying attention to my mortgage, by doing what I should do, in a few years, I get a very big financial benefit out of it. It's the same exact way with you guys in school. When you come into school, if you work hard at school, if you pay attention in school, even though it's harder, even though I could be paying a mortgage with $1,600 or $1,700 a month and I choose to pay $2,400 a month, in the long run, it benefits me. In the long run, it's helpful for me, even though I have to work harder now. And in your guys' case, you should be saying to yourself, if I work hard now, I win easy later. Or live like nobody else now, so you can live like nobody else later. If you're the one who does your schoolwork, if you're the one who pays attention and develops great work habits, you're the one that at 45 years old is very successful in this world, 40 years old, 45, 50 years old. You're living it, living the dream. And if you want to be irresponsible, if the only thing that matters to you is anything other than your schoolwork, then when you're 45 or 50 years old, you're not gonna have anything compared to the person who did take their work seriously. Okay, so, very quickly, we want to get this into y equals mx plus b form, and this is really the emphasis of what's going on. What's the bad thing about this 2y equals 4x minus 10? What's stopping it from being in y equals mx plus b form? Josh? The 2y. 2y means 2 times y, so I need to do the opposite and divide. So I do a little algebra here, and I get y equals 2x minus 5. So what's the slope? Everybody, what's that slope? 2, not 2x, just 2. The slope is always in front of the x. And what's the y-intercept? Negative 5. Very good. Okay, now we go to the next one. Find the slope of the line connecting these two. I write out my slope formula. Y from the second point minus y from the first over x from the second minus x from the first. God bless. So I always like to subtract so I get a positive in the numerator or on top. So this is going to be, here's my fraction line and my subtract symbols. The y from the second is 7. The y from the first is 3. The x from the second is 1. The x from the first is negative 1. Circle agregar. 7 minus 3 is 4. 1 plus 1 is 2. So the slope is 2. Okay? All right, any question on number 2?
Well, we're supposed to divide it then?
If it's possible to divide it in evenly, you do. If not, you leave it as a fraction. Okay. Next. Boys. Next up. 3y equals negative 3x plus 12. The bad thing, like before the 2 was bad, Josh told us about that. What's the bad thing here? The 3. It says 3y. Kenneth, you with me here, bud? 3y means 3 times y, so I need to do the opposite and divide by 3. And I get y equals negative x, or negative 1x, plus 4. What's the slope, everybody?
1x.
Careful. First off, x is never part of the slope. What is the slope, folks? Take a look. See, Joe, turn. Put your knee under your desk. Put your shoulder forward.
Y.
Anna? Negative 1. Excellent. And what's the y-intercept?
4.
4. Good. So I begin where?
4.
That's what the B is for. 1, 2, 3, 4. How do I move?
1 over 1.
Down, negative. Down 1 over 1.
Oh, yeah.
And we always go left to right. And I connect the dot. And there is my graph. If you can do that last question and all the variations of it, you understand completely everything you're supposed to know from this chapter. If not, then you're missing something, and you really need to watch the videos at home or go to extra help. Let's turn the page. Okay, everybody graph the first question. Everybody graph that first one, the one that says y minus 2x equals 1. Frankie, head up in the game. Hey, I'm with you, too. That doesn't mean I don't do all work. Hey, how do you know the right part? We learn that way. You versus myself, or you versus yourself? You had it, so now you're gonna get y equals 2x plus 1, right? Okay, so we take a look at the first line here. What's bad about y minus 2x equals 1? Davis?
The equal sign's not on the y? Or
Right, it should say y equals.
Yeah.
It does not. The thing in the way is the minus 2x. How do I do the opposite? Okay, es un opositivo operación of minus 2x. I add 2x. Good. Die. Y equals 2x plus 1.
Oh.
What's the slope? Everybody?
2x.
No, Davis, we said 3 times to you this period.
Yes,
The
it
x is never part of the slope. 2,
Two.
which is really 2 over 1. And what's the y-intercept?
Left.
So I begin at 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Backside, extend the line. There is my red line. I'm not going to label it because they're both red. All right, let's see you guys try the next one. 4y minus x equals negative 12. Now you got to do two things to get y by itself. Another 30 seconds or so. Okay, so the first bad thing is the minus x, so I got to do the opposite and add x. So that gives me 4y equals x minus 12. But there's still something bad. What's the bad thing now, Hannah? That's right, the 4 is bad, so I need to do the opposite, which is to divide. So I divide by 4, and now I get y equals 1/4, because there's really a 1 there, x minus 3. What's the slope? 1/4. What's the y-intercept? Negative. Up 1 over 4, up 1 over 4. Here's my line. There's my graph. Okay, starting tomorrow, we will be in full-blown review mode, with the exception of Colonel LaRock. And by the way, I gave you a handout on Colonel LaRock's biography. You can show that to your parents and, and let them know what's going on.